I control what's going on in that fight. And so if Gilbert does his homework and he is as fully prepared as I think he's going to be, then he might just pull out the dog out of me, and you might see that savage that was in that Covington fight. But if he slips up and doesn't do his homework properly, then you're just gonna see a one-sided domination like you always see in my fights.
Okay, UFC 258 this weekend goes down with the welterweight strap on the line. The champion, the Nigerian Nightmare, Kamaru Usman taking on Gilbert Burns. And I'm delighted to say that one half of that main event joins me right now. It is the champ himself. Kamaru, it's always a pleasure to see your smiling face. I know it's a little bit disappointing that we're not in the same room together, man. These new times meaning that we're having to do things over screens, but it's always a pleasure to see you. How are you, mate?
I am wonderful. You are right. It is. It sucks. That's the thing about the times that we're in right now. It's we're trapped in rooms where we got to get clearance and I tried to walk out of my room just now and there's a security guard literally outside. They're like, no,
That's
sorry,
it.
your name's not on the list. Let me look at the list. And so yeah, these are the times that we're in right now, and it sucks to say, but hey, anything we have to go through, any hoops that we need to jump through in order to get that paycheck, that's what we got to do now.
Well, that's it, man. Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about jumping through hoops and going to crazy levels in order to fight and get paid. I want to just quickly refer back to your time on Fight Island because a lot of the narrative of your fight with Jorge was kind of always about Jorge. It was about him taking the fight on 6 days' notice, flying around the world and saving the show. But we kind of can't forget that the champ was in the same situation. The champ had just finished the camp for one guy and on 6 days' notice agreed to take a fight with another guy with a different skill set. Talk me through that process because I know that you were in Vegas and on your way home when the fight was being made, and then you had to go back to Vegas to fly across the world. Talk to me about that craziness in order to make that fight happen.
Yeah, that's part of the game now that I'm the part that kind of I'm not excited about when it comes to doing what I do is everything is about what they percep what they put out to the media, what the perception is. I'm the champion. I have everything to lose here. I just trained for one guy. That guy can't compete. So I have to now put my belt on the line again in 6 days' notice against a very, very dangerous opponent, the 2019 Fighter of the Year. I have to put that up against him. Fly halfway across the world where I was supposed to leave 10 days before. Now I only get literally 4 days to be able to acclimate, adjust, and risk everything in there. And no one really talked about it. They were talking, oh, he's stepping in on 6 days' notice and things of that nature. He had a built in excuse. This guy had a built in excuse for when things don't go his way. But what people forget to mention is that the fact that the champion is the one risking everything, willing to do this. And that's just kind of the champion that I am. Just because I'm not the loudest and the most boisterous out there and brash, to where sometimes, and it is something that bothers me a little bit, is sometimes people take that for a weakness, that oh, he's too kind or he's too nice. They kind of take that for a weakness, but rest assured, there's a savage in here, and whenever that opportunity presents itself, I will let him out.
You were also taking that fight injured as well. If I'm not mistaken, you had a broken nose going into that fight.
Yeah, I broke my nose 2 weeks before, and there was I try not to really put a lot of things out there, especially what's happening in training camps. But there was a picture that was put out, and I was in the picture. I was wearing a face mask, a face shield, and of course, some people probably overlooked that, like, oh, that's just the cool thing, just for sparring. But it's because my nose was shattered, and I uh, I wasn't gonna pull out of the fight, and so anything that I needed to do in order to get to that fight, I was going to do.
Justin Gaethje?
it's a co- it,
Was
it's a
he responsible?
combination. Yes, it was a combination of Justin Gaethje and Carrington Banks. They were it was a joint effort in how they broke my nose.
What was the experience like fighting behind closed doors, fighting without fans? Obviously, you're used to the big time and the the full arenas. What was it like on Abu Dhabi without the fans?
It was a little different, but for me, it's something that I've been used to before. Being an amateur wrestler, I'm used to wrestling in a big gym with no one there, but just our team and their team, and you still have to go out there and compete and get the job done. So it was second nature
Mm.
for me. Of course, I like the fans. I've grown fond of them, but it didn't really make that much of a difference. Once I was in there and I was locked in mentally, I had to get the job done.
I remember seeing your post fight interview, and you seemed disappointed, whether it's with yourself or whether it was that's why I asked about the fans, whether it was that adrenaline high wasn't there off the back of the fight, or was it something else that you were disappointed with?
Yeah, I was disappointed with yeah, it was a combination of everything. Like as I mentioned, most people that were fighting on that card was there 10 days before, 7 to 10 days before, just to try to
Mm.
acclimate. And because of my fight falling out and being rescheduled, I lost like 4 days in transition to acclimate to being there. So literally I flew there. I had a day of checking in and doing all that stuff and testing, quarantine, and then cut weight, fight, weigh in and fight. Literally like
Yeah.
4 days to prepare for that. And I'm risking everything. I'm the headliner of this show. And with all that, a combination of now it's a whole nother time zone. It's not just a couple hours difference. It's a whole another time zone. It's like a 10 to 12 hour difference to where now the time where I'm supposed to be in bed, I have to be up and active and trying to get my body going. And of course, it didn't help that there was a racetrack connected to the hotel.
I've
So
seen it.
4 a.m. You're trying to sleep. They're practicing. You just hear the race cars going through, and I can't open my window and tell them to keep it down. So so it was just a combination of all of that, and then the fact that I also had to fight at 7 a.m. in the morning.
Mhm.
Um, it kind of threw everything off to where the whole week I just felt like I was trying to catch up. I was trying to catch up, even though going into the fight, I was still trying to catch up. And I was disappointed overall in myself. When I get in there, it's not me competing with them. Of course, it's a competition between myself and them, but it's really with myself on the inside and me
Mhm.
knowing what I'm capable of. And even with just only 4 days, and even with barely any time to prepare, and it's a new opponent and no sleep. I really did not sleep at all. Even with no sleep, I dominated him from start to finish. But even with that, I felt that I could have done more. I felt that I
Mm.
could have put him away. And so if that fight was to ever take place again, I will put him away for good. Because he's saying that he wasn't training. He was training the whole time. That was the best that he has. But that was not the best that I had.
And of course, you just moved gyms. Talk to me about
Yes.
that process as well, because as I said, you were training for Gilbert. You guys shared the same space, the same trainers, and it was you that made the decision to go to Denver. Talk to me about that mindset of doing that.
Yeah, it was previously before that, in the fight before, I almost made the transition to Denver. But I had already started camp and it was just a short time and figured, okay, I'm just gonna stick it out here and then go out to Denver. So I kind of pretty much already made the decision before even the Gilbert fight materialized. But yeah, it was that fight happy that they threw that together so quickly. So it wasn't like you had 4 or 5 months to prepare. It was
Mm.
more like it seemed like more like 6 weeks to me. And with the fight being thrown together, it's like, okay, we got to make the move now. So Jen just moving out to Denver and starting trying to learn a new system, being with guys to where you're now trying to learn different guys. It's a different thing when you go to a different gym because different guys, the respect level is different and how they come at you when you train. And so, starting to understand how to adjust to that, it was a challenge, but we that's what we do best is we adapt and we did that.
I'm fascinated to get your opinion on preparations for fights when you are chasing something and when you are defending something? Is there a difference from your point of view?
Yeah, there's a humongous difference. Um, I go back and I think back sometimes and I'm like, man, it was fun when I was the guys coming up and I was having to call guys out and do all that. It was fun. You know, that those were the good old days. They're not that anymore. You know, now it's the target is
You're the target.
constantly
You're
on
the
my
target.
back
Yeah.
every time. So it's everywhere you go, eyes are on you. So that's a weird one. And also, when you're the challenger, like let's say you're the number one contender. I remember when I'm the number one contender, it's all I have to do is train. I'm at home. All I have to do is train and prepare for my chance to knock off that guy at the top. That's all I have to
Mhm.
do. I had the luxury of being at home, being with my daughter all the time, seeing her every single day, going taking her to the park, taking her to the stuff, just to do little activities and things of that nature. But then when you become the champion, no, you got this interview you have to go do in California. You have this show that you have to do here. You have that you got to do there. You got to do there. To where the number one contender is sitting at home each and every time, just training for you. And this is valuable time that you could be training, but you don't have anymore. And so just that, the mixture of that, you start to cut down the time to where now it's you got to be able to train smarter and not just
Mm.
have it because you don't have the time to train as hard as you want all the time. You have to be able to train smarter and effective in order to ensure that. And one thing that I will add is the difference that I like to put between myself and other previous champions is people start to get this mentality, oh, I'm defending, I'm trying to defend, this thing that I have. I'm trying to defend this lifestyle. I'm trying to defend that. I don't want to lose that. I don't want to lose that. And I'm not going in with that mindset. I'm going in with the mindset that I'm trying to earn that. I'm trying to get that. I'm still the
Mm.
hungry contender. I'm still that number one contender. There's just something about that momentum. When you come in that fight and you go in, I'm going to take that belt. And that is my mindset each and every time when I step in there.
What's this camp been like? Well, I suppose this and last camp because you've completed a full camp for Gilbert. What's it like preparing for someone that you know so well?
It's
Is it easier?
no, 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 no. It's good and bad because
Hmm.
the one thing about about it is when you know each other, it's and especially when you were training partners for years, the one thing about me is I like having training partners. So I don't try to hurt them in training. I don't try to go full out and kill them in training so they never want to train with me anymore. So
Okay.
in a sense, it's a little feeling of where this guy really thinks that that was the best that you have just because they felt that part of you in training. And so there's a little happiness in that sense where it's like they've not seen the full savage that's inside me. They've not seen that hungry lion because they've seen you training at practice with them. But then there's another side too, where it's like, oh man, they do know you. Like, remember some days you had those days to where you're training for a fight and they're not training for a fight
Hmm.
and they're just brought in to give you one round and you're dead tired and they got the best of you that one round. So they're feeling like, oh man, I can get them because of that one round. So there's a little trickery there that your mind tries to play on you, but you just gotta, I just gotta trust in my skill set and know that I'm the champion for a reason and it's gonna stay that way.
Does when you do meet a training partner in real combat, as you are doing obviously at the weekend, does that then, do you think, change the relationship dynamic forever?
Yes, it does. I mean, this is one of the most intimate things that you can do, and and
That's
especially,
bittersweet though, isn't it, with the sport? That's the bittersweet
yes,
part of the sport.
yes, yes. It's definitely bittersweet, but it's one of those things that it's forever going to change the landscape of the relationship because and it could be for better or it could be for worse. You never know, but it's
Hmm.
one thing for sure. It's going to change because he has even gone on record and said, "Oh, I have something that he wants, and he's going to take it." So you have this other man that you've known and you felt like you've shared blood, some sweat and tears with training, and now he's looking at your plate saying that, hey, I want that. I'm gonna take that from you. I'm not gonna ask you, could you share that with me? I'm gonna take that from you. And so just have that mentality. It's there's I would be lying if I said that there would not be a change in the dynamic of the friendship.
It's like lions in the wild, my man. Lions in the wild. Listen, I'm
Absolutely.
conscious you've got other I'm conscious you've got other people to speak to, so I've got two more things for you. First of all, are you aware of this? And maybe this is the thing, I don't know, that is the motivating factor in longevity in this sport for you, because you've caught the game, you're there now, you've achieved the goal of becoming the welterweight champion. But a win at the weekend puts you outright in the welterweight division for consecutive wins in the UFC. Are you aware of that stat?
Mm, ah, I know last fight. I no, I was not. But
You're
I know
currently
last
12 and
fight they said,
you're currently at 12. Yeah, you're currently at
yeah, I
12.
think they said
GSP's at
that last
12.
time.
Yeah, so you win at the
Yeah, I think I
weekend. That's
remember it
13
last fight.
straight in
They
the
told me
welterweight
that.
division.
Yeah, yeah, I remember last fight they said something about I would tie GSP for some record. Um, but no, and that's one of those things that I don't pay attention to. I don't put unnecessary pressure on myself that I don't need to, and I never look at that. I I remember when I was just starting out my career and I looked forward. I was 1-1. I just lost my second professional fight, and I remember I looked at Rashad Evans's record. I looked him up, and I was living with him at the time, and he had something like 10 wins in a row. I just remember see all greens on his record, green, 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 green. I'm just like, holy crap! Like, at what point will I ever get that many fights? And I remember them telling me, you just take it one fight at a time. You just worry about one fight at a time. And that's what I've done, to the point where now they're saying something about I might potentially pass GSP or tie him for a record. And that's just, as long as I keep my head down and worry about the task in front of me, the records and all those accolades are going to pile up.
Hmm. It's funny that you just mentioned Rashad there, because your careers seem to be mirroring each other. Tough, championship belts, fighting, gym mates. You seem to be doing everything very similar
I
to
know,
a
I
man that's
know.
mentored your career.
I know. When he was inducted into the Hall of Fame, I was sitting right next to him because we were working the broadcast together, and I'm just like, you know, I am literally following in your footsteps the whole way. You were the Ultimate Fighter champion. I was the Ultimate Fighter champion. You were the UFC champion. I was a UFC champion. You left your gym, and it turns out I'm leaving my gym. You fought a former teammate. It turns out I'm about to do that same thing. I mean, it's crazy in how small this world is, and yet
Hmm.
so massive.
Hmm. Listen, last one from me, because I know we've just been speaking about lion mentality. You've got Gilbert at the weekend. I'm not going to ask you how this plays out because I know what your answer will be, my man. But I'm sure that you are looking at the other contenders as well that are floating around in that welterweight division. Leon and Hamzat are going to be fighting very, very soon. As the champ, do you look at that and think that's probably going to be my next one after the Gilbert fight?
Uh, it depends, though. It depends for you know, and I have myself to blame for this, beating pretty much almost everybody in that top 10. Now I'm put in a situation to where one guy could potentially have just one fight, one ranked opponent, and he might get a title
Mm-hmm.
shot. Or Leon is been on a roll, has been knocking off guys here, here, and here. And of course, Leon goes out there and wins impressively. Absolutely, I believe he deserves a shot. And we'll see what happens with that. But it's right now I'm literally just focused on Gilbert, because there's no clear cut guy standing out there that's like, hey, I am the next guy. There's really not a clear cut guy, and so we'll see if it's Edwards, then it's Edwards. If it's not, then it's if it's Masvidal again. He seemed to be running with that excuse. He ran with that excuse. Oh, I took the fight on 6 days notice. I was in training. I would love to see what he has different with a full camp, because I truly believe it'll be worse with the full camp. It was better for him just taking that fight on 6 days' notice. With the full camp, I think it would be way worse for him. So it could be him. You never know.
Final one, champ. At the weekend on BT Sport, UFC 258. Do we see a finish? What do we see?
Um, I there's really one fight that I've gone into, actually two fights now, and that I've gone into and said that, what, for sure I'm going to finish these guys. That's because I was going to fight out of my character. Um, the Sergio Moraes fight, just because I that there was some meaning behind that fight that a lot of people didn't know, between myself and the UFC, to where that's what I felt like I had to do, and I went out there and did it. And the Covington fight, and you saw that in the Covington fight. I took unnecessary shots, but that was because I said that I was going to finish this guy, and I did that. In the Moraes fight, same thing. I said I was going to finish him, and I did that. And I did take unnecessary shots. Um, what I've come to realize is I dictate what goes on in that fight. I control what's going on in that fight. And so if Gilbert does his homework and he is as fully prepared as I think he's going to be, then he might just pull out the dog out of me. And you might see that savage that was in that Covington fight. But if he slips up and doesn't do his homework properly, then you're just going to see a one-sided domination like you always see in my fights.
I'm looking forward to it. Kamaru, always a pleasure to speak to you. Go well. Enjoy this weird fight week. We're looking forward to see you do your thing at the weekend, my man.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it as always.